Over the past 7 years, I've attempted to explain Bitcoin to my grandfather 20 times. The first 19 times were an absolute struggle. I tried to explain a currency that's 100% digital. I tried to explain decentralization, the idea of hard-capped supply, but every time the conversation ended in confusion, and he remained convinced that there's no way that something that he can't touch or see, that is not backed by any physical assets, can have any real-world value. The 20th time I attempted to explain Bitcoin to my grandfather, I took a different angle and something very different happened. I thought about his life. I looked through his story in my mind, and I tried to find somewhere where I could make a connection, where it could be relevant to him. My grandfather grew up in Iran, as had over 50 generations before him. He started a family there, he built a successful business, but in the 70s he found himself surrounded by deep political turmoil and made a difficult decision to leave his community, his home, and his business to find a safer, more stable place here in the US. So this 20th attempt, I said to my grandfather, when you left your country, you had to leave almost everything behind because they were only able to bring the things that they could carry with them on short notice. And he nodded his head. So I said, Bitcoin is money that lives on the internet and goes with you wherever you are in the world. It's everywhere. And no one can prevent you from using it or decide when or where you can send it to. It's yours, just like cash. But you don't have to carry anything with you. It's as easy as remembering a secret password or writing it down on a piece of paper. Finally, I saw that he was having his Eureka moment. His eyes became wide, he placed his hand on his head, and he said, "Wow." Now, I'm not implying in any way that speaking with you today is anything like trying to explain Bitcoin to my grandfather. But you do find yourself in a world that is being rapidly transformed by blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. And it's crucial as a business owner or executive that you understand this technology, and most importantly, that you're aware of how it's going to impact your industry, your business, and your career. So my name is Jeremy Musighi. I'm the Director of Blockchain Strategy at ICCG. We're a blockchain consulting firm, Chief Investment Officer at Immutable Capital, a crypto asset investment fund. Been investing and researching in the space since 2012 and had the great pleasure of building 2 technology companies with some very passionate and talented teams. Both of those companies were acquired. So at ICCG, we help organizations across industries understand and implement blockchain technology. We interface with organizations in 4 ways. The first being education and awareness, bringing your team up to speed on what blockchain is and its relevant use cases. The second is opportunity analysis. We assess how your particular industry will be impacted by this technology in the short, medium, and long term. We highlight and identify the opportunities and threats that will face your business in particular. We provide that to you in a very detailed report. The third thing we do is strategic road mapping. We consolidate the priorities and opportunities, and we build a multi-phase roadmap for blockchain integration. And the fourth is execution and implementation. We start from proofs of concept to pilots to full-scale blockchain implementations. We integrate those into your organization's value chain. So today I'm going to be covering 3 areas. First, we'll go through a 101 level overview, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, something that you can easily digest and follow along, about blockchain, what it is, how it's used. The second, we're going to dive into the key features that make this technology unique and important from a business and societal standpoint. Third, we're going to discuss specific, concrete, corporate use cases of this technology occurring right now. So we're going to start with a polling question. So pull out your phones and get on your app. The question is, when do you think blockchain will affect your business? So we'll give you guys 30 seconds to fill in the questionnaire. So from my angle here, it looks like we have a pretty mixed bag. We have a few people basically in every category. Cool. So I would read that as uncertainty, not a strong conviction in one direction or another. So it's a good thing. We're about to discuss it in detail. Hopefully you guys will get more clarity. So to teach you about blockchain, let's start where it all began, which is with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the very first blockchain and one of the most important inventions in history. And I'll explain why. So after the 2008 financial crisis, an anonymous entity that went by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto released a 9-page academic paper that solved multiple problems that software engineers, economists, cryptographers, and game theorists had been scratching their heads about for years. All of these solutions were married together into one masterpiece that is known as the Bitcoin Whitepaper. So to introduce you to what this is, I'm just going to go through the abstract at the very beginning of the paper. We're going to break it down line by line so you understand exactly what it means. I highly recommend in your free time reading the entire paper. It's quite fascinating and quite relevant to today's world. And for the Bitcoin community, this paper, these are like biblical verses that we're about to be going through. So first line, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. So today we can pay each other directly in cash, or we can use intermediaries to facilitate our transactions digitally. So Bitcoin enables us to pay each other directly like we do in cash, but digitally without a middleman. So if I want to hand you a $1 bill, I don't need anyone's approval. I don't need someone to help me transfer it to you, and I don't need to pay anyone a fee. I can just put it in your hand. So the question being raised here in this first line is, why shouldn't the digital world work the same way? Show of hands, who here uses Venmo or PayPal? Okay, pretty much everyone. So you send money from your account to mine, but in between us there are several intermediaries. Your bank, my bank, the company, Venmo or PayPal. So how long does it take for me to actually take possession of that money? Well, it actually takes several days. And what does it cost? Well, if we're in different countries, it can cost quite a bit. So the point is that not only do intermediaries slow things down and charge us money, but they actually also hold a lot of power because of that position. They have the power to decide whether to grant us an account, whether we can engage in this financial system. They have the power to revoke or keep our accounts at any time, and they have the power to decide whether to allow our transactions to go through or not. So a system that allows the transfer of value directly from point A to point B digitally is faster, cheaper, and it's self-sovereign, meaning that my money belongs to me. I can send it to whom I want, when, and where I want. Second part here. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. In the traditional financial system, trusted intermediaries are empowered to ensure that the same value cannot be spent twice. So there's no cheating allowed. If I have $1 and I send it to you, I cannot send that same dollar to my mom. In Bitcoin, this policing function is taken out of human hands and instead enforced by software. And the reason is because humans are tricky. Humans have their own self-interests at heart, where software is straightforward. It executes the function that it's written to execute, period. So next we have the network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. The longest chain not only serves as proof of the sequence of events witnessed, but proof that it came from the largest pool of CPU power. So without getting too technical, the takeaway here is that every transaction on the Bitcoin network is preserved as is, like a fly in amber. It's unchangeable by the outside world. And so it forever serves as a true record of exactly what happened, when, and between whom. This ensures without a doubt that everyone owns exactly what they're supposed to. As long as a majority of CPU power is controlled by nodes that are not cooperating to attack the network, they'll generate the longest chain and outpace attackers. What does this mean? So the Bitcoin network runs on collective computing infrastructure, pooled together by people who are spread out all over the world. So by plugging their computers into the Bitcoin network, each participant agrees to run the Bitcoin protocol, which is a set of rules that coordinates resources in a way that gives independent actors an incentive to harmoniously operate a global network. And the network needs community resources in order to function. So it receives those resources by paying people to provide them and fulfill necessary roles. So miners are people who devote costly resources to the network to facilitate the transactions that enable the network to function and to keep the network secure in exchange for payment in Bitcoin. And since miners are only paid if they're honest and not malicious, it's more worthwhile for them to work with the network than against the network. This is one of the big game theoretical puzzles that was solved by the Bitcoin network. So as the network continues to grow, the strength of its security grows proportionally, and that proportionately shrinks the feasibility of anyone successfully compromising the network. So one way you can think about that is the more money is secured on the blockchain network, the more expensive it is to attack the Bitcoin network. Every 10 minutes of transaction history on the network is saved into a block. This block is chained to the block before it, creating or forming a blockchain. Now, this blockchain serves as a record that lives on as long as the network continues to exist. The network itself requires minimal structure. Messages are broadcast on a best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. So this network is fluid. Anyone can leave or join, and the network will continue to work the same way. An important implication of this is that if anyone wanted to shut down the network, they would need to somehow simultaneously shut down thousands of nodes that are not connected to each other and are spread out around the world. So if I'm one of these nodes, if I'm one of these participants in the Bitcoin network, and my system gets shut down, there would be no meaningful effect on the network as a whole. So more broadly, what is blockchain beyond Bitcoin, and what does it do? Blockchain is the architectural model created by Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the use case of blockchain for money, but blockchain is a general purpose technology. You can think of it in the way that you think of electricity or the internet. You can use electricity to blow dry your hair, to run a data center, or to power a concert. You can use the internet to get a college degree, to buy a car, or to stream movies. So these are use cases that have nothing to do with each other, but they all rely on the same underlying technology. So similarly, you can use blockchain today to make payments. You can use it to verify whether your eggs this morning were organic, and you can use it even to play games. Blockchain is back-end technology. So it's not something that end users see or touch. So an analogy would be that if you're not a plumber, when you turn on the sink or when you flush the toilet, you don't need to see or understand the intricate system of pipes that is operating in order for that to happen, right? It just happens. When you use an app on your phone or when you interact with a website on your laptop, you are indirectly interacting with the web, which is this complex infrastructure making everything possible behind the scenes. Again, that's not something that you need to personally understand or see. So similarly with blockchain, if you're not a software developer, you don't need to see or understand the blockchain that is operating underneath the consumer or enterprise product or service that you're directly interacting with. So blockchain is a foundational layer upon which you can build all kinds of things, from land registries to supply chain management systems to electronic health records. And this technology is transforming the way that we create transactions, store data, and move assets. So as back-end infrastructure, blockchain is the most reliable type of system out there because of its unparalleled resiliency. Since it has no central points of failure, while all traditional systems go down from time to time, inevitably, blockchains do not. And as a prominent author and investor in the space, William Musighi puts it, blockchain is part database, part development platform, and part network enabler. So let's look at a few of the inherent properties that make blockchains unique. First is decentralization. So blockchains don't exist in one location. Rather, they're comprised of many nodes that maintain identical copies of the blockchain. And they keep it running from many locations around the world without authoritative bodies. So why is decentralization useful in the first place? I'll name 3 reasons. The first is fault tolerance. So a decentralized system is less likely to fail accidentally than a centralized system because it relies on many separate components that are extremely unlikely all to fail at the same time. The second reason is attack resistance. So decentralized systems are a lot more expensive to attack or manipulate because they don't have central points of failure, which you can attack at a lower cost than the size of the whole. And the third is collusion resistance. So in a decentralized system, it's much harder for participants to collude in order to benefit themselves at the expense of all the other participants. And notice that we're talking about people here because at its core, the fundamental concept of a blockchain is it's a new architecture. It's a way to organize. We could be organizing people or we can be organizing machines, but at the end of the day, we're organizing and aligning human interests in a way that drives value to every participant in a network. What is a network, right? This room is a network of people. The company that's hosting us is a network. The United States is a network. So this is a new formula for building and operating a network on a fundamental level. So second feature here is security. So every transaction that's recorded on the blockchain must be cryptographically verified. Cryptography allows network nodes to collaborate in an automated system of mathematical trust. So there's no subjectivity in the system. It's purely governed by math. Immutability is important because on a blockchain, information can only be added over time, but it can't be deleted. So what does this mean? It means that we're creating an audit trail that's carved in digital stone. Once information is confirmed, it's permanent and it cannot be erased. This is very rare in today's digital world where almost everything can be easily erased. And then we have transparency. So blockchains can be public or private depending on the use case. In the case of Bitcoin, since it's public, any computer in the world can connect to Bitcoin's blockchain and view its record of debits and credits between accounts all over the world, right? This creates a system of global trust. And since everything is transparent, everyone is on a level playing field on this network. Now, in some corporate use cases, this transparency, this feature, can apply to everyone within some limits, with everyone within an organization, or it could be everyone within an authorized group, depending on the company's use case. We'll stop here. I feel like everyone's kind of just frozen. Maybe you're like very engaged. Okay, we have a question.
I guess what, as the chain keeps expanding, it seems, does it get so unwieldy that it's unusable for a computer to access the node because it has to, like, I just think if I have 10 tabs open, it can't, my Internet Explorer doesn't work well. At some point, does that happen?
That's a really good question. So the question is that since blockchains continue to grow over time, because the history from day one is maintained infinity to infinity, does it become, too heavy, too unwieldy to actually use the blockchain? And the reason why that's relevant and that's important is because the nodes that comprise the network, they're all holding copies of the same exact network. So this is being held, this file essentially is being held all over the world on so many computers. So this is a topic that's been debated very heavily in the blockchain community, and there's been a lot of innovation in terms of developing solutions that enable us to access data on the blockchain, for example, without necessarily having to download the entire thing every time. We have solutions that have been built to make transacting with the blockchain a lot more efficient. It's extremely technical to get into. I'm happy to talk about it with anyone, later, because it could take a while. But it is a great question, and it is extremely relevant to this topic. So thank you. Anything else before we move on? Yes.
How's this going to impact your banking system?
I will get to that because it's going to impact the banking system in a big way. The question is, how is this going to impact the banking system? So it impacts the banking system pretty much in every way. We'll actually take a look in a little bit about the banks that are using this technology and how. Anything else? Okay, let's go. So, in looking at blockchain's use in the business world, we'll start with a numerical overview. So through the end of this year, businesses will spend $2.9 billion on blockchain. This is up 89% from last year. And this spending is projected to grow at 76% compound annual growth, which will get us to $12.4 billion per year by 2022. So that means spending will quadruple in only the next 3 years. The space is exploding. Annual spending is currently led by the United States, followed by Western Europe, and then China. And the most rapid growth over the next 3 years is projected to happen in Japan and Canada. Did you know that in the next 5 years, 10% of global GDP will be held on blockchains? I didn't make this up. It's according to the World Economic Forum. So let's jump into these real use cases. How are companies actually using this technology? How is it making a difference right now? And to do that, I'm going to take you on a guided tour of 8 sectors of the economy in which major companies that we all are familiar with are using blockchain technology right now in the wild to significantly change the status quo in their industries. I'll be focusing specifically on established players that are stepping forward and adopting this technology proactively. They're doing this to unlock new business growth, to find new competitive advantages, and to build defensibility against disruptive products and services. I'm going to be giving you a small sample. There's a lot of activity going on right now, as the numbers would show, but this will give you an idea. So, first area is banking and payments. And 4 companies that have been extremely active and investing very heavily in this space are Barclays, UBS, JP Morgan, and Anheuser-Busch InBev. Obviously, they're not a banking and payments company, but they're using the technology for that. So UBS and Barclays are using blockchain to expedite back office functions and settlement. This system alone is estimated to cut $20 billion in middleman costs for them. Barclays is also using blockchain for an invoicing and payments project that lets businesses send secure invoices, make fee-free vendor payments, and sell invoices for instant cash, all on the blockchain. Anheuser-Busch InBev is developing a blockchain platform to facilitate payments to their supply chain farmers who are abroad. And they can receive that from anywhere in the world, even if they don't have a bank account. This includes farmers in remote countries like Zambia. JP Morgan has gone as far as actually developing their own cryptocurrency, the JPM coin. They're using this to facilitate transactions between institutional accounts because of its major advantages as far as cost and efficiency and speed. So healthcare is the second area we'll be looking at. There's actually supposed to be a third logo here, which is the US Department of Defense, and we'll get into that. But Philips, IBM, and the US Department of Defense are 3 companies we'll look into in the healthcare space. So Philips Healthcare is building a platform for healthcare data storage and verification on the blockchain. This enables the handling of sensitive data more securely. It also gives patients more control over their personal medical data. And it significantly cuts paperwork and manual processes in the medical field. The Department of Defense in the US is working on a blockchain platform for tracking disaster relief efforts. So currently, when there's a natural disaster, the relief efforts are relying on centrally managed systems, and it makes it extremely difficult for different relief services to be collaborating efficiently in a time of crisis where you really can't be wasting time. So this blockchain platform provides a live feed from multiple agencies' relief efforts, and this is something that can save both lives and money for all of the organizations involved. So in education, top institutions like MIT, Harvard, and Berkeley have already implemented blockchain-based credentialing systems to replace the old-fashioned methods for issuing and verifying certificates. So blockchain-based credentialing systems significantly cut the time and cost required to issue and verify certificates, and this makes it a lot easier and more efficient, not only for the institutions, but also for the students and for their future employers. And at ICCG, we've advised on a project exactly like this. It's an inevitability and it's a no-brainer for the education space. So another thing that this technology enables, which is very interesting, is micro-certificates. So on the blockchain, when these systems are moved onto the blockchain, students can actually earn micro-certificates on an ongoing basis throughout the education process as opposed to only their final certificate at the end. And this is something that can really revolutionize education in a lot of ways. So next we'll look at supply chain management. This is one of the areas of highest corporate investment in blockchain. A lot of big names getting involved here, from Walmart to Microsoft to Louis Vuitton. And we'll take a closer look here. So Walmart has unveiled that they'll be using a blockchain-based system to easily trace the origins of produce that they receive from suppliers. And it's crucial for retailers, especially in the world of food, to know where something is coming from, not only so that they can assure the consumer that they're paying for what they're expecting to receive, but also to manage outbreaks. So when there's an outbreak of some sort of disease or bacteria, rather than recalling everything and throwing it all away and going through an extremely inefficient and cumbersome process that creates a lot more waste than it needs to, a company like Walmart can track down exactly which items are contaminated and quickly address that problem without affecting all of the areas that had nothing to do with it. In Spain, two of the large energy companies called Acciona and Iberdrola certify that the energy that they provide is clean by tracking its origins on the blockchain. And Louis Vuitton has developed a blockchain platform for authenticating luxury goods. So this lets customers trace products from design to distribution, adding protection against counterfeit, fraud, and stolen goods. Major game changer in the luxury goods market. Cloud computing. So blockchain is a new battleground in this space between companies like Oracle, Salesforce, and SAP. All three have invested heavily in releasing their own blockchain offerings, which build on their existing services like CRM, data management, and invoicing. In CRM, blockchain enhances the capabilities of CRM by improving personal data security, by making it easy to cleanse duplicate, obsolete, and corrupt data, and to bring transparency to business processes such as ad management. So you spend money on ads, you hope that the clicks that you got were actually from the people that you targeted. There's a lot of trust involved in a system like that. That's one of the systems that is crucial for blockchain, which brings transparency and trust into the picture. So insurance is a very active area for blockchain applications. It's one of the industries that will be most disrupted by this technology. And you can see that some big companies have already jumped on board. Ernst & Young and Microsoft have launched a blockchain-based marine hull insurance platform, which is currently in commercial use. It's projected to handle 500,000 automated transactions in year one, and they're planning to roll out this platform to other types of insurance next. Deloitte has also developed a blockchain micro-insurance solution for the sharing economy. So this allows customized micro policies for Uber rides and Airbnb stays. These are the kinds of things that were just completely infeasible until the advent of blockchain. So HR is an area where blockchain will also have a big impact, and one of the reasons is because the need for transparency is a major pain point, especially in recruiting. So 53% of resumes contain falsified information. 70% of college students admit that they would lie in order to get the job that they want, lie on their resume. But the first foothold that's developing for blockchain in HR is actually in the gig economy and remote work. So blockchain is being used to make it easier for short-term workers to find jobs on the fly and to receive same-day payments for their work. It's also making it easy for companies to make cross-border payments cheaply to remote workers, which is becoming a bigger and bigger, more and more common arrangement. This space in particular is being heavily disrupted by startups because the big players have been pretty slow to move and adapt, unlike in the other industries that we've looked at. However, ADP has announced that they're developing a blockchain platform. Last is IoT, or the Internet of Things. This is a technology that's commonly mentioned together with blockchain as two complementary technologies. And that's because IoT devices need a network protocol to govern how they communicate efficiently. So Samsung is using blockchain to connect massive numbers of IoT devices, no longer needing a central hub to mediate communication between them. So this allows the devices to communicate with each other autonomously and directly, to manage software updates, to fix bugs, and also to manage energy. And they'll be doing more complex functions over time. So why are businesses building on blockchain? Why is this space exploding so much? What are their underlying reasons? What's the root? Not the tree, what's the root, right? So first, it's growth opportunities. So blockchain is being used to unlock new growth by increasing capacity to serve more customers and to launch new businesses that were not possible before. And it's also to protect the future. So companies are taking a proactive step to future-proof themselves by adopting this technology so they don't get blindsided by disruptors. Third, it cuts time and cost, right? So blockchain is being used to streamline operations, to add more automation and transparency, to replace middlemen, to cut fraud and human error, to protect against cyber threats, to unify fragmented data. These are all very expensive problems that can be alleviated with blockchain. And fourth, to establish or maintain a leadership position in their market. So I want to leave you with 3 questions to consider here. First is, how can blockchain disrupt your industry, and how would your business be affected? Second, what are the opportunities for your organization to benefit from blockchain? And third, is your business positioned to succeed in the blockchain era? Will you be like the Sears or the Amazon of this new era of technology? So now we have part 2 of our polling question. Go ahead and enter your answer. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's different. Maybe you didn't answer the first time, but now you have an opinion. Go ahead and take 30 seconds to do that. Cool. So it looks like 1 to 3. Is it 1 to 3? Yeah. Looks like the number one answer is 1 to 3 years. Also a bunch of people who think it'll be within the year, but almost everyone thinks that it'll be within the next 3 to 5 years. Did anyone say never? I think like one person may have said never. No, never. Okay. So thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. If you have any uncertainty about the 3 questions that we posed, feel free to come and find me or get in contact. I'd be happy to help. Thank you.